Hey guys, it's Paradise, and if you're a Monster Hunter fan right now, you probably understand how we feel because there's so much information right now. We're both super hyped, but also kind of overwhelmed. So in today's video, we wanted to drill down on some of the biggest changes to Wilds and focus on topics of the ecosystem and world itself, which may not sound very exciting if you're one of those hunters that just likes to unga bunga hit big monster, but after digging through even more articles and videos than the 40 plus ones that we've already gone through, we found some literal game-changing updates coming in Monster Hunter Wilds that will fundamentally change how it feels to hunt monsters. A lot of the information in this video comes from the Summer Games Fest and Capcom previews, which we don't have any direct footage of, so we are trying to make the best content possible for you, but in this case we can only really use the trailers that already exist, but we will try to add in contextual examples where possible. There are some pretty massive changes here, so let us know what you're thinking of them, and whether or not you're excited or scared for the way they're changing Monster Hunter. But do tell us below, because we really want to know what you guys are thinking, and we may even talk about your comments in a future video. The first thing to know about Wilds is how the map and world itself have changed. We know from the Japanese interviews that the world of Wilds will be an open world similar to that of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, as it will be a series of interconnected biomes. And within Monster Hunter, these interconnected biomes will basically be the different locales. Some of the Western media outlets have put information out there that the game will follow a similar structure as the previous games, having separate locales that you will need to load into. But this doesn't seem to be true, as in the Japanese interviews, Tokuda himself has said that we will unlock more locales as we progress through the story, with these locales being seamlessly interconnected. On top of this, Capcom have repeatedly called the game seamless instead of open world, as they've said in interviews that open world means something different than what they're aiming for, as you don't have access to all of the areas instantly at the start of the game, or the freedom to go everywhere. So to give you an example, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is seamless like Wilds, while something like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a true open world game where you can go in any direction, even right at the start of the game. So that's essentially the major difference here. Monster Hunter Wilds has areas that you cannot access until they're unlocked, but once they are unlocked, they will be seamless and connected to everything. We know that the locales in Monster Hunter Wilds are massive, with areas like the Windswood Plains being 2 to 3 times bigger than that of locales in the previous games, and they will include mini biomes such as the one we saw in the trailer, with a sandy desert area, a swaying grasslands area, and the twisting rock formations that we got to see with that lightning boy Thor Magala. This is only the first locale that we will visit in Monster Hunter Wilds though, so there will be many more areas to unlock as you progress through the game. Remember, base world had around 5 major locales, so we can kind of expect the same here. People are speculating that the amount of locales is actually related to in the logo, with the number of circles on the logo symbolizing the number of locales we can visit. We do know from Tokuda that the locales will be varied like they were in previous games, and it won't just be one big desert area. He was asked, "This is the first seamless map, but will the field continue to expand, or will it be designed with one base per area?" Tokuda said, "The image is of a vast, seamless map with more areas like forests and deserts. The scale of the map will expand as the story progresses." To be honest, the game is already looking pretty good, even though we've only seen this desert area, so we really cannot wait to see what Capcom have cooked up for these other places that we get to visit. I mean, does anyone else remember the first time you witnessed the Coral Highlands in Monster Hunter World? It was quite a breathtaking experience, and it's probably one of my favorite locales to this date. This does bring up one of the most insane things about Wilds, and it's something that isn't being given enough limelight, as the world itself is a lot more persistent and will feel more like a living and evolving world. This is something we hear a lot from marketing around open world games, but from the details that Capcom have given interviewers, it actually seems like they may have pulled this one off. This is probably one of the reasons that people who were lucky enough to see the demo were extremely impressed by it. For example, we know from previewers that the endemic life will persist through hunts, as they will feed their young and grow, but the persistent nature of the world extends to things that we actually hunt and the objects in the world itself. We got some more details about how this system would work in a PC Gamer article, as they say, at the same time, weather effects will change monsters' behavior, as will the continuous day-night cycle. These kind of effects will remain persistent and dynamic as you play. So you might be wondering, why are we so interested in this world's ecosystem and how it's changed, and why we think you should be too? Well, in previous games, the world's ecosystem was there and included things like monsters roaming between areas, smaller creatures, and monsters looking for prey. In Monster Hunter Wilds though, it's been dramatically changed by Capcom to vastly improve our immersion, and this means it will impact what you're fighting, where you're fighting, and how hard they are to take down. So the actual world and its ecosystem is going to be something that you need to consider even if you just want to focus on hunting monsters and nothing else. In a PC Gamer article, they expanded on this as to how the persistent and environmental changes will impact hunts. Tokuda said, let's say you're hunting a Doshiguma and you reduce the number of them on the map. When we open the map next time, if you find one to hunt, there might not be as many. If you pull down some rocks that hang in a cave to attack a monster, it will be a little while before they are ready to use again. This is because they kind of develop on their own timescale, so that will affect the next time that you go there. Now this is pretty cool, and it definitely seems like it will make us feel like we're actually hunting monsters. The fact that it's also layered in with other levels of simulation, like the day and night, the weather system, and so on, will make the world feel a lot more dynamic and meaningful. And it seems like they want a big emphasis on making the world meaningful, because plenty of games do have weather systems like time of day, but for Monster Hunter Wilds we know it will actually be impactful for the gameplay loop. Certain monsters will only appear in specific conditions, meaning we will need to actually take more notice of the current state of the world depending on what we want to hunt. One example of this is our favourite new wyvern, Thor Magala, will only be able to appear during sand tides, as well as there being monsters that will only appear during the nighttime. However, this does beg the question, what if you've hunted all the monsters in a particular area? Well, don't worry, the devs have a system in place for this if a specific monster is required for a hunt. In a PC Gamer interview they say, there are quests that are more standardized in the sense that they're packaged up for you to go out and do something with specific conditions. If you've hunted the Doshiguma nearby until there are no more, you won't be locked out of a story quest that requires you to hunt a Doshiguma. The story quest will generate the conditions required for the quest to actually happen. So you can kind of think of it like there's two different ways to approach quests that coexist within the game. So this system seems like it will be mostly used for important story quests, rather than something that will be whatever this game's version is of investigations, but it's good to know that we won't be blocked out of any story quests and stuck in progressing because you wiped out all the Plesioths off the face of the earth and now you just can't hunt any more of them. This is then expanded on by the fact that the ecosystem's behavior will actually have an impact on where and when you can hunt certain monsters, which is actually crazy because just listen to this from the article. By focusing on this systemic simulation, Wild seems to be taking the exact path I hoped Monster Hunter would go down. Tokuda explained that when a carnivorous monster hunts down a herbivore and takes it away from its pack, this could send the surviving pack fleeing to another part of the map. If food then becomes too scarce for that carnivore, they'd have to change their own hunting pattern, potentially sending it somewhere new itself. This is a quote from a PC Gamer article that explains it a bit better and really drills into how it can get exciting. Capcom seem to have really cooked with this one, and we love that they have simulations like this. Here's another quote about it from Tokuda. There's a relationship between the herbivores and the carnivores, and that's going to be interesting. It's not just the carnivorous monsters that go to certain spots on the map to eat. They need to find a herbivore to eat if that's their prey. So you'll find that there's an interesting domino effect. If a carnivorous monster has become hungry and wants to get some food, it will go attack and eat a herbivore, maybe even attacking it out of its herd. This will then cause the herd to scatter or move to a different place for safety. The fact that they've then moved means that any monster that preys on them is going to be looking in a different location for their food. These monster movements around the map are going to have a great effect on the player's action. As you watch this play out, it will change how you need to respond and where you need to go on the map. So this is a very cool thing for certain hunting scenarios, as maybe you could set up a monster to get jumped on by a pack of other monsters by completely culling its food chain to cause the target monster to get hungry and be in a certain place at a certain time. We're sure it's the same for many of you, but turf wars are one of our favourite parts of the new games, so it's going to be great to see more of these and have them pop off dynamically while you're out hunting. If you're wondering how we will track down these monsters though due to them moving around the map, the previewers were told that we will have a similar system to that of World, whereby you can look for tracks of monsters, and after it's been discovered for the first time, they will then be on your map. So from this, it seems like the scout flies won't be breaking our necks as the camera snaps to where we need to go, and the overall process is much more simplified. Alongside this, something else we need to factor into the gameplay loop, considering that monsters will have their own true ecosystems, is where we place our camps, as we know these will be highlighted places out in the open world fields, where we can pop up our own camps that will also be able to be destroyed. This question from Famitsu goes into a bit more detail on it. They say, tell us about the camp. It seems that you can set up a simple camp out in the field in this game, but what kind of specifications does it have specifically? Tokada said there are several possible locations for camping in the field, and you can set up a number of camps at these locations. As in previous games, they are absolutely safe locations, but there are also locations that are highly convenient and may be attacked and destroyed by monsters as potential locations. There is also the option of setting up camps in a high risk, high return location, or you can set up camps only in safe areas to ensure stability. As long as there are a set number of locations, you can set up camps freely or destroy them or move them to another location. It's designed to allow players to choose according to their own way of playing. So it sounds like you can build camps closer to the areas you want to go to, but they will be more prone to getting destroyed by monsters. There's also more examples given to how the dynamic world will change the behavior of monsters. The article says, weather events both directly and indirectly affect combat and monster behavior. A sandstorm lowers visibility, sends herbivores fleeing the area, and causes lightning strikes that can hit the player and monsters. The desert's thunder element Apex Predator also becomes more powerful during the storm and actively wants to be struck by lightning, and lightning strikes can hit bushes and trigger fires. The fact that lightning can actually trigger a sort of forest fire sounds pretty awesome, and Capcom's really doubling down on these things that we personally loved about in World. We know that these fires aren't going to be the only traps that there will be. As they go on to explain, there's seemingly a higher density of environmental traps like vines, rock slides, etc. that you can trigger remotely with the new Hook Slinger. So get ready to start dropping those Rathalos down the waterfall again, as it's going to be glorious times ahead with so many more environmental traps. There are some other tidbits that we found out though that relate to the world and ecosystem that just make the game sound that much more impressive. We've already spoken about how the game will feature alpha monsters, which are much bigger and badder versions of the already existing monsters. There haven't been confirmation yet if this extends to the bigger monsters like Elder Dragons, but that would be pretty cool if there were alpha Elder Dragons. We also know there's extra uses for endemic life this time around, with one example being that you can use the Hook Slinger to grab a tooth out of one of the alligator endemic life smaller monsters and then use that as slinger ammo. The more advanced AI this time around will also cause some awesome interactions to happen, like a low health monster suddenly being attacked or swarmed by other monsters that wouldn't normally dare to even try. On top of this, monsters are also able to swarm the hunter when they're actually in packs. Some monsters will behave differently while in a herd compared to being outside of herds, which is cool to see because you can lure them away with slinger ammo, and this is a sort of intended mechanic to lure monsters away so you can more easily hunt them. Now this next point we aren't 100% sure if it is true because we've only seen it mentioned once, but apparently you're able to domesticate some of the wildlife and keep them to generate resources for you, and these resources will be used in crafting items or gathering stuff. There was also a mention in other impressions that the town NPCs will take care of the wildlife to get resources, but this does all kind of add together into some kind of farm or system which we do normally have in Monster Hunter games. For example, they say, Kuha Village is the homeland of the secret, where secrets are raised. Additionally, other decorative monsters are domesticated for their fur and milk to produce cheese. In Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, there was also success in domesticating monsters similar to alpacas. So from this, it sounds like there'll be something similar to the Mufas from Generations. Now obviously this could be a mistranslation, so do take it with a grain of salt, but it's going to be very cool to see if they have iterated on the farm mechanic, where we can go out and capture these creatures to bring back and add to our farm and then generate more items. We also know that each of the different hunting locale areas will feature an environment with two dramatically changing identities, but it seems like they will also have some kind of weather event similar to the thunderstorm or thunder tide, so it will be really interesting to see what dramatic weather events these other locales have. Maybe a snowy area will have some kind of blizzard, and a forest area might have a monsoon of some kind, and that's when the strongest monsters of those areas come out. So hopefully all of this information has made you more excited just like us for Monster Hunter Wilds. While this could just be a gimmick and slow down what we love about monster hunting, all of this stuff is giving us exciting options and tricks to try out, giving the game a bit more life and freshness. Also, this is just the stuff that has been revealed so far from the previewers, so you know it's going to be great when they start dropping extra information about some of the better, more late game monsters, other biomes that we get to visit, and their weather conditions, so there is still a lot to learn and experience. But which of these things did you find most interesting? Tell us in the comments down below, and we're going to have you covered with more Monster Hunter Wilds news coming very soon.